Hi guys, it's Owen from Mast, and today we're going to be checking out the Noctis Pro Mini PTZ.
Damn.
This is an active Deterrence PTZ, so we're going to be going through some of the unboxing for the camera and also the functions and features, and as well as some configuration towards the end of this video. The contents of this box includes the Mini PTZ, the screws and fixings, your waterproof glands, your Allen key, and also your quick start guide. The Mini Noctis PTZ camera also comes packed with features including a 2 megapixel resolution capable of performing up to 30 frames per second, a 2.8mm to 12mm varifocal lens, as well as that you also have a 4x optical zoom. You also have a 50m IR range, as well as a 10m true colour range, also commonly referred to as a white light, and you also have the Starlight low light technology built into the camera as well. You also have a red and blue active deterrent light on the top of the camera, as well as a built-in mic and speaker, which is capable of performing two-way audio. So now that you've powered on the camera and connected it to the network, we can begin the configuration process. Initially, this camera in this case is standalone, so to find the IP address you can download the Noctis tools, and this will basically scan the network for any sort of Noctis camera that is on there. So we can easily see the IP address here in this case to log into the device and start configuring it. So once we've found the IP address and we type that in, we can then log into this camera. When you log into the camera for the first time, the username will be admin and the password will be 123456. I've already changed this password, so I'm just going to log into the camera already. And we can see the camera's live view there already. So now that we're logged into the camera, we can see its live view, and then down the right hand side we can see the controls, a speed level as to how fast we want the PTZ to move, and also preset and patrols. You can of course also have your zoom in and your focus there as well. So starting with presets, we can add in new presets and give them names and numbers. So let's call this preset 1. And we'll call this home. Click OK, and then what I'll do is I'll move the PTZ a little bit to the right, a bit further, and we'll create another preset and call this TVs. So now if I click this button here to go to the preset home, you can see there it takes me back to the home preset, and then if I go to TVs, it will move the PTZ back to the right where I left it to point at the TV. So we can go ahead and now create our patrol. So we can give it an ID, so a number again, so we can call this 1, and we can call this home to TVs as an example. And we can add in our 2 presets, so home and TVs, and we can tell them to stay there for 120 seconds. And then once we've done that, we can hit OK, and we can see there that we can then start to play this patrol. Then it will move between those 2 presets for 120 seconds each. So now we can move on to the actual setup of the camera and utilising some more of its in-depth functions, since those were just the PTZ functions. So going over to setup, we have our general basic information in here as well. Not going to go into too much depth into these as they're fairly self-intuitive. You have your network of course, as well as P2P, so if you did want this camera to be standalone, you can have it as a standalone camera and just add it to the app separately without a recorder. Video and audio, obviously this details all of the mainstream and substream resolution, frame rate, bit rate, the usual kinds of options that you're used to. If we go into PTZ, we have the basic settings and the home position, which if the PTZ was to be moved or put into a different preset, then in this case I can tell it to go to a preset or patrol and tell it which one, and then I can tell it for how long it has to be to wait in order to go back to that preset or patrol. So in this case it's 15 seconds. So we also have limit remote control for any sort of like separate PTZ remote controls that you may have, any like sort of joysticks, and also you have a patrol resume as well. In your image settings you have your standard image adjustment settings in here, your exposure, your smart illumination, so you can change the white lights or the infrared. If you didn't want it to use infrared, then you can just have it in permanent white light mode, or vice versa for infrared. So moving on from the image settings, you also have your on-screen display and also your privacy mask settings in here as well. So moving on to the two main features of this PTZ, the auto tracking and the human body detection. These are split into two different functions. If we go ahead and look at the auto tracking, we can track a human for anywhere between 1 to 300 seconds, or we can of course have it set to continuously track, so that is an infinite amount of time, and it will only stop tracking until it can't see that human anymore, so that there's nothing to track. We can also have it go back to a preset as well, so if we do want to have it pointed at the TVs to start the preset from, then it will move across to that position. So just remember to also enable your auto tracker as well, of course, and then we can also set a plan, so we can set some sort of schedule as to when we want the PTZ to be active for its auto tracking. Once you've done that and set the correct rules that you're wanting, you can then scroll down and hit save. Hit OK. So then that way it will track any sort of human that will walk into the frame of the camera. So once you've set up your auto tracking, you can then start setting up your human body detection. And this is when we will apply any sort of trigger action along with it. So when it does detect a human, we can of course tell the PTZ to either do a siren or flash its lights, anything like that. So straight away we can enable the human body detection, and we can then start to draw an area, or a snapshot area, and then we can have this any size that we want. So if I just draw a square around the whole thing, so once I've drawn my box, I can then go ahead and set my trigger actions. So in this case, we don't want the alarm sound to go off, but instead we do want the red and blue flashing lights to blink for a total of 10 seconds. And then we can also set a preset for it to go home to preset 1 after the trigger has finished. So when we've done that, we can then go ahead and click save. And then now, once we trigger this camera, it will flash its red and blue lights at me whenever it detects a human. If you are using this camera standalone, you can of course insert a memory card into it, so you can record storage onto here as well. If you're still struggling with the setup or have any issues, then you can check the Noctis Pro technical guide, or if you don't have a technical guide, then you can request one from ourselves. We also add in a quick starter guide alongside every recorder purchased. This camera is also OnViv compatible, allowing you to add it to other brands of recorders as long as they also support OnViv. So recorders like Dahua are no problem to add this camera onto. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do have any questions, be sure to leave them down below, and don't forget to leave a like and also subscribe.